All right, guys, so here we are picking up our example for the multiple production. Sorry, I can't even get it right. So the multiple production department factory overhead rate. All right, here's our example. So it says the total factory overhead for Bertha Marine Company is budgeted for the year at $600,000 and divided into two departments: the fabrication department at $420,000 and assembly department at $180,000. Bardat Marine manufactures two types of boat: the speedboat and the base boat, and it's telling us the requirements. So it's 8 direct labor hours in the fabrication and 4 direct labor hours in the assembly department. And then it tells us that the bass boat requires 4 hours in the fabrication and 8 hours in the assembly. So it's saying that each product is budgeted for 250 units of production for the year. So in part one, it's asking us, what is the total number of budgeted direct labor hours for the year for each department? So hopefully you've come up with 3,000 for the fabrication department and 3,000 for the assembly department. And as we did in the prior videos, I am going to now walk you through this process. All right, so here we are. We have both the speedboat and the bass boat, and remembering that both of the products must go through both of the departments, right? Fabrication is the one in charge of cutting the boat or the material to shape it, and then we also need some time. Each of the products need to spend some time in the assembly department, right? It's part of the process. Now for the speedboat, it tells us that 8 hours is required. So here, it tells us that the speedboat requires 8 hours of labor in the fabrication department and 4 hours in the assembly department, right? So there we have it. So a total of 12 hours. And then after that, for the bass boat, we're going to go through the same thing. It tells us that for the bass boat, it needs 4 direct labor hours in the fabrication department and 8 direct labor hours in the assembly department. So we have that. So they are flipped. So each department in total needs about 12 hours, right? But the combination of the breakout is different, right? So they're going to produce, again, each of them going to produce 250 units for the year. So if we did 8 plus 4 equals 12, and then 12 times, so let me use this, sorry. 8 plus 4 hours equals 12 hours in total for the speedboat times our 250 units. That's how we come up with 3,000 direct labor hours, and then we do the same thing for the bass boat. Okay. All right. So then next, what we have here is our next question. Sorry. The next question we have. There we go. Is what department factory overhead rates? What is the department factory overhead rates for both departments? Now this is where we would use our handy dandy little formula that we have. So it should be $140 per direct labor hour for fabrication and $60 for the assembly. So how did we come up with this? Again, we are going to create this, use this formula for each of the departments and go through that way. So if you're following along with the spreadsheet or the worksheet that I provided you with, we're here and we're looking at the fabrication department. So it tells us that the fabrication department has a total of $420,000 to allocate, and then we're going to need here the 3,000 hours. So that's what we're going to put here. And so the rate for the fabrication department again is $140 per direct labor hour. And then we're going to do the same thing for the assembly department. The assembly department is 180,000, and then their total hours is 3,000 hours. So we're going to put that here, and there we have it. Okay. So hopefully that made sense to you guys. Again, first you need to find out the number of hours per department, and then you need to find out what is each department factory overhead rate. All right, next, last but not least, is asking us, what is the factory overhead allocated per unit for each unit for each product using the department factory overhead rate? All right, so in layman's terms, they're trying to figure out for each of the products, what is the total factory overhead you're going to allocate based on the rates that was provided and the number of hours that are for each, for the number of hours required for each department. Okay, so this is the number that I came up with, but let's walk through this example, okay? All right, so let's start with the first part. We're going to start with the speedboat. So in the speedboat, it's looking for the allocation-based usage per unit. So we remember in the prior step, we got our breakdown from here. So we're going to fill that in. So the speedboat requires 8 direct labor hours in the fabrication department. And then our rate that we've calculated from here, right, is 140. So if we did that calculation across, that would give us $1,120. And then in the assembly department, it requires 4 hours. The speedboat requires time of 4 hours. The rate was $60 per direct labor hour. We multiply that across, we get 240, right? And that's our total, right? And so again, our total, we're gonna do these two numbers added together, give us this. All right, we're gonna do the same thing for the bass boat. Our setup here tells us that the bass boat spends 4 hours in the fabrication department and 8 hours in the assembly department, right? And then we've already calculated our rates. So 140, then we have 8 and 60, right? Similar to what we did for the speedboat, we add these two numbers together, and then that's how we get our total of 1,040, okay? All right, so hopefully that made sense to you, but for a second, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the distortion of product costs when comparing both methods, okay? So if I'm comparing a single plant-wide rate method to the multiple method, in this picture, you can see right now that we have some distorted or some differences in the method, right? So maybe if you go back to a prior video, we had came up with $800 per product, right? And now for the multiple production department method, we've come up with separate numbers, right? So let's talk about why, how all of this happened, right? So this is why it's very important to take a real look at how each product consumes factory overhead, right? Because we realize that the snowmobile requires more time in the fabrication department than the riding mower, right? So the snowmobile is not, in our example, what we see in comparing these two methods is the snowmobile is not allocated enough cost, right? If I'm comparing these two numbers together, under the single plant-wide method, and then if I compare it against the multiple production department method, they're not allocating it enough cost. They missing the mark by $138. However, under the riding mower, they're allocating too much cost, right, to it. Because instead of it being $800, I mean, the amount that they're allocating to it is $800 when it should be a lot lower, right? So again, that's causing, maybe that could cause the company or Ruex company to over cost their product, right? So the reason for all of this is that the reason for the cost distortion, it's caused by averaging the differences between the high factory overhead costs in one department, such as the fabrication department, and then the low factory overhead costs in the assembly department. So remember, the snowmobile spent a lot more time in the fabrication department, and the riding mower spent less time. But under the single plant-wide rate method, they just say, okay, I don't care how much each product spends in each department. We're just going to average the low and the high, and whoever gets what, right? And that was one of the flawed assumptions when dealing with the single plant-wide. It said that we are assuming that each department or each product consumes the resources the same. And under the multiple production department method, we have just realized that all products are not created equal, right? So hopefully that made sense to you. There's consequences if you decide to move forward with the plant-wide rate method, only because it can cause you to overprice or underprice a product, okay? So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and stop this video, and then in the next video, we're gonna pick up with ABC method, which is the activity-based costing.